Try this again. Welcome to the Beige Planet Podcast. I'm Paul Pate.
I'm Al Lawrence.
And we've got our guest Tom Vosicky on the phone. Tom is an artist and writer and creative director. He's got a book coming out, Ribbit and Snibbit. Welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul. I really appreciate being on, and Al, too.
It's great having you.
Really cool to be on your podcast.
Can you tell us about Ribbit and Snibbit?
Absolutely. So, it started 6 years ago. My daughter's, she refuses to go to bed just like I do, and so it got to the point where we were going through all the books in her room, me telling her stories at night to try to get her to go to sleep, and finally I just started making up stories, and I would just keep going on and on and on. And then I came across this one play on words, Ribbit and Snibbit. Mm-hmm. And I made up a story about these two frog brothers. And the next day, she didn't want to hear any other stories other than Ribbit and Snibbit. And so it happened that fast. And then it became where the pressure was on, and every single night after work, on my commute home, I would have to think of a kind of a script to tell her. And
there's no pressure like the pressure from a little kid looking at you, I'll tell you.
Totally. And so, it developed into a lot of fun, and I've written a lot of screenplays, and so I'm into sci-fi, and I'm into comic books and things like that. So I came up with some really crazy plot points. I'm to keep myself interested in the story as well.
Right.
And so what that means is that I was telling my daughter a lot of like kind of highbrow, beyond the average 3-4-year-old story. This wasn't Goodnight Moon. These were stories that were, that would keep Mulder and Scully and Jack Bauer busy, and, it got to the point where my wife was literally outside the door wondering if I was going insane or not, telling her some of the subject matter. She was kind of my censoring bureau. Are you sure you should have had, you should have used a letter opener to cut open that animal's, pouch to give birth? And I'm like, it's a cesarean section. We all do those, or, normally animals don't have to do that, but in this case, they're genetically engineered animals. So, all the rules of nature are gone when that happens. And when that happens, you need a letter opener. So,
hey, Tom,
yeah.
You piqued my interest with two things. I'm sure Paul knows one of them. First, I wanted to say I can relate because I had to make up a story with my son. He was fascinated with the bad man, and it carried on for a couple of years. And I literally had to keep making up these scenarios about how I was defeating the bad man. I don't know where he got it from. It's just, it was bedtime stories. It was driving in the car. I just kept having to come up because children's imaginations, they run wild.
Yeah.
But the other thing that piqued my interest is, just wanted to mention real quick that, you said you write screenplays. I'd like to get with you sometime because that's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, yeah, sure.
If you have the time, if you go back and look at our very first podcast, Paul, who's not paying attention right now.
No, I'm looking. I'm listening. I'm looking for one of my books.
Paul interviewed me about my screenplay.
Yeah, our podcast is a lot better now, believe it or not. We were pretty rough back then.
I should say my first completed screenplay. I'm working on another one. But I would then later on like to get with you and discuss some things.
Absolutely, sure.
I'm looking for my book, one of my books that I illustrated. My kids are complete. You two are talking about how your kids are enthralled by these stories that you have. I've got books that sit here that I've written and illustrated, and they're just not interested in them. I can't get my kids to pay attention to me. So.
Let me go on to the next question then. What is crowdfunding or an IndieGoGo campaign?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen here.
Yeah, what I'm doing with Ribbit and Snibbit, it kind of goes before that. Before I can answer that, my wife came to me. We have a special needs son named Joe that we adopted 3 years ago, and he has a lot of different mental and physical challenges, and cerebral palsy being the major one, and it goes down the list from there. And we've just kind of gone through a really rough road with him as far as figuring out what the best, patient care, if you will, is for him. And so my wife comes to me one day and she said, we should advocate for a couple of parents here locally and help them get around the map. Nobody did for us, and we would have appreciated it. So we should help somebody else. And I said, that's a heck of an idea. But then I thought I could help a whole lot more people. I like to think big. And so I thought, why not help everybody? And there's 1,100 families a year in Nevada that either adopt or give birth to special needs children. And a whole lot of people and a whole lot of kids that need help. And so I kind of decided I would come up with a way that I could help them. And the best way is with a website and, actually managing good patient outcomes for a multitude of different childhood diseases between the ages of 0 to 5.
Quick follow-up. Are you just working locally, or is this national, or you plan on going national?
Oh yeah, it's going to be national. I never wanted to just do it locally. Okay,
all I asked is my boss. He has a special needs son. He might be interested in checking this out. So
right on. Yeah. So what this is basically managing patient outcomes for various challenges and difficulties from the ages of 0 to 5. And I found a company, I put together everything I'd need to put together and, to be HIPAA compliant and, have the database, proper serving, and all the other different things that I need. It's going to cost about $100,000 to put that together. Well, my wife wasn't too excited about me putting together 20 credit cards to get it done, right? So that's where crowdfunding comes in. And Ken, my old filmmaking partner, and I had talked, about crowdfunding a ways back, and so I kind of pinged him on it again as a refresher course. And basically decided I was going to, crowdfund this. And what that is you get, 700-800 people to give you $50, and all of a sudden you're well on your way to accomplishing your goal.
Right.
So then what you have to do is come up with what are they going to get for their $50, and that's where the other awesome woman in my life comes in, my daughter, who, Olivia. She's 9 now, and she said, well, why don't you make Ribbit and Snibbit into a comic book, graphic novel, and sell that, and then you've got your money. And, awesome. Of course, that sounds too simple, like kids often make things sound like ridiculous, it would be easy to say, oh, that's ridiculous, but then I started thinking, Well, at the very least, it's a good reward. And then I started thinking, if I did this, it could be something that would be special just between my daughter and I. Even if nobody bought this thing, this is something after my big fat butt's long gone, she can share with her kids and say, this is what my dad did for me. And it can be kind of a family thing. And so I was, intrigued with the project from that level. And so I just decided to run with it and do originally Kickstarter. And then John Vasquez saw my Prefundia site and and he said, don't go with Kickstarter, go with IndieGoGo, which is the competitor of Kickstarter.
Right.
And, and so he kind of convinced me to go ahead and go with his company. And so here I am. I've got my IndieGoGo site live. It's launched. And
we're kind of looking at it on the screen right now, Tom.
Yeah, Paul has it up on the screen.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So I've got your Ribbit and Snibbit site, and then I clicked over to your IndieGoGo site as well. And I'm just looking at the artwork. I love. So you drew these?
Well, originally, yeah. For years, it started with my daughter saying, "So what do Ribbit and Snibbit look like?"
Right.
And then I'd make up all these other characters like Raccoon and Snackoon and Rabbit and Snabbit and Squirrel and Snurl and Owl and Snell, and it goes on. The only reason I do that is because that combination made her laugh.
Right.
And so I just kept up with it. And so I would sit there and sketch all this stuff out for her and draw the characters out. And she said, "Oh, I think he should have a hat." And so I'd put a little hat on him, And over the years, just in her bedroom, we would sit there with a piece of paper and pencil and kind of identify different traits that she wanted the characters to have. And I would draw them out. And then what happened was I realized, I'm a pretty busy dude. I've got a lot of stuff going on as far as, I got to pay for the bacon. And so I spend 10 hours a day at my day job. And then, I've got the nights and
Right.
Joe, my son, eats into the nights. And I always say my freedom begins when his bedtime begins.
Right.
And so as soon as he's down, 7:30 p.m., I have free time. I can do what I want to do. And
Gotcha.
And so then it becomes, I have a couple of hours. Well, that's really not enough time to get a project of this magnitude done. And so what I realized quickly I was going to have to do was get some involvement from other artists. And I did a lot of research, and there was this website I came across called from the Blur Group, they're called, and they're out of England. And what they do is they match artists with people that are looking for artists. And so you put up hey, I've got a budget of X dollars, and I'm looking for some artists to draw this project, and here's some sketches that I've got. And so I ran across these crazy artists out of Transylvania in Romania, and I know it's awesome. And they talk like Dracula too, which is cool. And so Jolt is his name, and
Right.
there's actually two guys named Jolt. And so I guess it's like Steve or something over there. And so I met Jolt through Blur, and we really hit it off. And they're incredibly talented artists. And we, through Skype and through Dropbox, were able to share sketches back and forth. And we did a lot of, early on in the process, a lot of development. And once that was done, I really kind of just gave them the stories and the sketches and let them go to town. And the result is what you see.
Now, can I get some of these books already, or do I need to get into the campaign?
Well, yeah, the campaign is where it all starts, because book one,
book one's not out yet.
Right. No, it's not out yet.
Campaign. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. You want to, let me just share some advice for people that are married out there. That is, I kind of, as you might be able to tell, I have hyper ideas all the time, and my wife, it drives her nuts. And so she came to me one night and said, stop telling me all these ideas. You're driving me crazy. And so I said, okay. And then all this stuff kind of came, the advocacy thing that she came up with. And then I found these artists through the Blur group. And the next thing I know, I'm putting $15,000 on a credit card because I want to hire these guys in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And I didn't tell her because she asked not to know. At least that's how I justified it. And in retrospect, that was a really bad decision. Because when she got that bill 30 days later, it was a real come to Jesus moment for me.
Yeah. Suddenly this podcast is going in a completely different direction.
Marriage advice, yeah.
Yes, counseling. Well, Tom, how does that make you feel?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, you want to kind of nurture the idea, nurture the creative and also nurture your marriage and keep them all balanced.
Yeah, it's a very tough thing to be an artist. In fact, that's one of the questions we always ask on this podcast is, you go to work, you earn a living, you pay for the bacon, as you say, but then you do more, and it's not easy. But why do you do it, Tom?
Well, like I said earlier, I wasn't ever planning on taking the story out of my daughter's bedroom. And I wouldn't have if we hadn't have adopted Joe. I wouldn't have been exposed to this whole world of special needs kids and knowing what I know about how hard it is to be a parent of a special needs kid. These kiddos, they require quite a bit of extra care, as you can imagine. Right. He goes to therapy 4 times a week, and he has 2 different schools that we got to take him to, and all these different doctors that he goes to, and he's got 2 or 3 doctor's appointments a week, and he's got to have a heart operation next year. And so there's so many different things that we face that you wouldn't face otherwise if you just had a normal child that is happy and healthy. Right. And on top of all that, he's a 3-year-old. So, that sort of attitude goes along with it. And so it makes it even more difficult. So, that in itself kind of made me aware that I should be doing something to help all the other parents out there that aren't getting that kind of support, that the support that I would like to have had. So if somebody would have done this for me, I would have been very grateful. And so rather than sit around on my butt and wait for somebody to help me out, I saw a need, and there was no solution currently available, so I stepped into the gap and decided to take it upon myself to do it. And so I can also mix in the fun aspect of being an artist into this, and really enjoy the process by taking the story like Ribbit and Snibbit and bringing it to the world. And that makes it fun. But on the other side of the fence, the passion that I have is for the special needs community and for especially the parents out there who I feel a real kinship to. Whenever I meet another special needs parent, I always look at the situation as, wow, I feel blessed because you realize it could be so much worse, or,
right.
Especially when I take them to therapy and, I think life's difficult, and then I see some of these other kids who can't blink, who can't, there's stuff that's just, you can't imagine. And what do you do when you're the parent of a child like that? And so I really want to stand up for everybody and say, I want to be the one to give them the kind of help and support that I wanted. And so I can do that with what I know how to do. So that's how I want to use my talent and ability, is to give back to something important like that, whereas before when I was making movies, it was just like, hey, let's make a crime drama, and have explosions and gunfights. Well, it doesn't really benefit anybody or anything other than, at the end of the day, we made some, people die on camera.
Yeah,
whereas
I can relate
with
to that.
This,
that's the way my stories are.
Exactly. It's just, you do the art for the art's sake, but you could also do the art for a much bigger cause. And so I find that I get a lot more fulfillment out of doing something like this than if I were to just do the comic book for the sake of doing a comic book.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, this is a great thing that you're doing, and which leads me to my next question of, what your background, what's your education, your training, that is there anything in your past that this is related? Obviously, with the movies and the artwork, I don't know if you could just explain to everybody, what your background education was.
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I started out, I've always known what I wanted to do for a living. I suppose that's an advantage over a lot of other people who are sitting twiddling their thumbs saying, what should I be? And my mom was an artist, and, my dad was a very good artist, but he was also a scientist and worked for NASA. But my mom was an interior designer and a painter as well. And I grew up across the street from this pretty prolific painter, and I used to spend days in his studio, in his basement studio as a child, watching him paint, and and then he ended up being my high school art teacher. So it kind of, art was just kind of where I wanted to be, and it's where I felt most comfortable. And when I went to college, it just became all about that. My dad told me, this is an interesting story. My dad told me not to be an artist, and he wanted me to be a financial planner because, like I would be good at that for some, I don't know why he thought that. I'm horrible with numbers, and, I would probably break most people if they made me their financial planner. Listen, this is coming from the guy who puts $15,000 on a comic book and doesn't tell his wife. So I signed up for this whole, okay, I'm going to be a financial planner my freshman year in college, and I'm really depressed. And my cousin Carlos comes up to me and says, hey, Chuck Jones is signing autographs down at the mall. You want to come and meet him? And I'm like, he's a hero of mine. He created Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. So I'm waiting in line, and it's finally my turn to get up to him. And I said, Mr. Jones, I've admired you my whole life. And at this time, he was an old man, and I was just 19. And I said, I would give you my youth, and I would be you. I would trade roles. I'd be the old man, and you could have my youth if I could just do what you do. And he looks at me and he said, boy, that was the stupidest thing anybody's ever said to me in all my life. And I was just crushed. I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And he said, I'll tell you what, he goes, go over there to Orange Julius, sit down and wait for me because I want to talk to you after this is over. So he comes over, believe it or not, and I draw a bunch of pictures on.
By the way, I've heard that he was like just a hilarious dude. Like, it wasn't just about kids' cartoons. He was kind of like a dirty dude, you know. He would.
Oh man, you should have heard our conversation. It was crazy.
Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there drawing cats playing fiddles on a napkin in front of him, and he's like, "You need to go to Cal Arts." And so, you know, give him, here's my name and number, and here's the person you want to call, and you know, and so I'm thinking I'm in, you know, and so for 5 years straight, they denied me, and even with Chuck Jones as as the name behind me. And finally, the 6th year, they accepted me, but I could only afford a semester there. And so I ended up finishing my school at San Diego State. I played football there. I was able to play with Marshall Falk, which was cool.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, so...
awesome.
Yeah, it was a fun experience, and then I played a little semi-pro ball, and I was a bouncer at a Hell's Angel bar, and so I had all of these experiences.
You don't sound like a guy you're so kind of soft-spoken and, you know, just nice. You don't sound like a bouncer, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in those days, I had a 68 chest and a 36 waist, so I ran about 5 to 10 miles every single day, and you know, I was in peak of, you know, I wanted to have the perfect body, and I really worked hard on it. And, so, you know, I was a bouncer and for 7 years. And, then I decided to to get into art, full time and take it seriously. And I started working at NBC as a commercial producer, and,
wow.
I made about 500 television commercials. I won a couple of awards, and I ended up coming out to Vegas and being an art director for KBBC out here for a while. And
I got 1 second, Tom.
Yeah.
Commercials. They're really bugging me. I mean, everyday people, you know, when they're eating dinner, they're not looking at each other, smiling, nodding their head. And I see that in every frickin' commercial on the air, like when they go to the restaurant.
Do you want to see cinema verite commercials, Al? Is that what you want to see? Like,
I want to see a typical American family having dinner and they're, you know, texting on the phone.
Stanley Kubrick directed commercial.
It's funny you should mention that because, you know, my shtick was I would take all the current movies of the day. Like one of the movies or the commercials I won an award for was this one that was based on the movie Desperado, and it was for a Chevy dealer, and I made the whole movie Desperado wrapped around this Chevy dealer, and you know, because I was sick of that too. I didn't want to make commercials that nobody would watch, and I wanted to grab people's attention, and if I had to do that with stunts and explosions, then I would do it, you know, and you have 30 seconds to work with, and so it was fun, you know, from that aspect, and I got to do a lot of editing and a lot of you know, quick kind of, you know, film work if you looked at it that way.
Right.
And it was a valuable experience, and I got so much, you know, experience behind the camera that you know, when I met my partner Ken, you know, we started screenwriting, and I just went out and put a second on my house and bought all the equipment, and we started making movies. I mean, it was that simple.
We're gonna have you back on and just talk about screenwriting.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, we gotta wrap up, Tom. We're gonna get to the part where, first of all, I want to let everybody know that watches, and we're gonna put a link on the website and we'll put it in the credits of the podcast. Ribbitandsnibbit.com is the website. So if Ribbitandsnibbit.com. Check it out. The thing I love about, of course, because I talked to you about the story and it sounds great, and I wish we had more time for you to tell us about it. But to me, the artwork is just fantastic on here. I'm looking at the IndieGoGo site, and there's a link to the IndieGoGo site where it's right on the Ribbit and Snibbit page, so people can get directed to that. The artwork is fantastic, and it looks like mouse on steroids, you know. So I feel compelled to get involved here. I just want a copy of the books, you know. I want to read it, Tom. So it just looks great.
Yeah, well, if I could compel you to contribute now.
Yeah, right. I'm going to check it out. I mean, you've got, you know, you've got the founder's face level, and let me share my screen again.
I was looking at the different levels of contribution you had on here.
Yeah.
You putting it up?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I don't want to pick the right screen here. Is that the right one, Al?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. So, yeah, you've got the, you know, I might go ahead and get involved in the, where I thought I saw like $45,000 or something. Or is that your goal?
That's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the stretch goal. 25,000 is actually the goal.
Okay. So, yeah.
So, and I'm at $220 right now.
Right,
so.
but let's get this thing going, and we're going to have you back on, and when you get, you know, an update how it's going. And
yeah. Plus, we can discuss more screenwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or your days as a bouncer in the Hell's Angels bar.
I'd really like to hear about that.
It was a topless bar too.
Oh boy!
I definitely want to hear more about that.
Yeah, we need to. So we're to the point where we just tell a random story about anything that happened to you during the week. Al, you got anything?
Well, yeah, I guess I can throw in a couple things. One, in case anyone's wondering, I'm wearing 3D glasses right now for no other reason than just to wear them. The other thing, this week, last 2 weeks, I had a pretty hellish week. And the city of East Lansing's not going to be very happy with us. They're going to pull around the corner and find over 300 bags of leaves at one house. Because we called it. We were putting the bags out at each house that we worked on, and then I'd call the city of East Lansing with a series of addresses. Well, we come back the next day, and the students who are in epic party mode right now because it's finals week this week. This is the last full weekend. So we come back through, and all the bags are just ripped up, torn, you know.
Yeah.
And so we collected everything and dropped it off at one house. And so yeah, they're going to pull around the corner, and you know, what the hell? Because we dropped it off at it has a small yard, and they're going to know, no way, all this stuff came from this one house.
Right.
Anyway, that's my only little, because I've been working like crazy the last 2 weeks, so.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can I have a real quick thing.
I did go to the Green Door the other night, though. The
Nice.
Green Door, tonight's sponsor. Live music at the Green Door. So.
Well played. I have a quick update on, let me go back to here, sharing my screen. We had a clown on last week, and
Literally a clown.
You got one on this week too.
Well, we're on here every week, so and I'm doing some artwork for him, and I just sent him some some mock-ups of his logo, and he thought they were okay. So, can you see him, Al?
Nope. You're on Ribbit and there. Okay, now they're there.
Okay. So anyway, he mentioned last week Stupendous Entertainment, his new balloon art company. And so I'm working on some logos. I sent him these mock-up kind of.
I think the top one's the best one.
Yeah, I think that's the one he liked too, and we're going to go with that, but it needs some work, obviously. So
We'll let Tom chime in when he sees the video.
yeah, Tom, when you see the video and you if you want to give some free advice to a
clown.
To a clown, yeah. Anyway, Tom,
Sure.
Tom, anything weird, wacky happened to you this week?
Well, I was over at Home Depot the other day, and it's springtime out here in Vegas, so it's starting to get warm. It's about 90 degrees, and I was wearing these shorts that are my favorite shorts. They're kind of workout shorts, and the waistband in them. I mean, they're kind of old. I've had these shorts for like maybe 5-6 years.
Uh-huh.
And so they're well worn, and the elastic is also well worn. And I'm standing in line, and there's a certain way that I've learned to stand in the shorts where they stay on. And with the elastic, it's a little trick. And I looked over, and on the rack, as I'm standing in line, I see this book that's basically like wiring your house for dummies, and I have to fix this wiring in our house. And so I was like, oh, that's, I need that book. So I turned around, and as I turned around to grab the book, my shorts dropped around my ankles. and so I quickly went down and grabbed the shorts and nonchalantly kind of pulled them back up again and acted like nothing happened. And then I hear this guy from behind go, "Oh, I saw that."
Did he say in that kind of a sexual innuendo type voice?
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I saw that," and I'm like, "Oh no!" And he goes, "They're gonna be watching security camera footage of that for years." He goes, "I bet that makes it on YouTube," and I'm like, "Oh no,"
You're going to be one of those people at Walmart.
Yeah, that elastic, damn elastic.
That's awesome. Well, thanks. That was a great little story there. Hey, Tom, it's been great having you on. Seriously, this has been cool. I didn't know. I learned a lot about you with your background and stuff. That was really neat. So I look forward to seeing your IndieGoGo campaign take off, and I look forward to getting a copy of your book. And man, let's keep in touch, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's one thing I want to leave everybody with, it's if you have a talent or an ability,
yes.
I'll tell you this: there's nothing more rewarding than figuring out a way to use it to help a lot of people. Okay. So I encourage people to, contribute to their community, contribute to the cause of somebody who needs some help, and
awesome.
And it kind of gives back to you, even more than you put out. It gives back to you.
Definitely.
Thanks, Tom. That's great. All right, listen. This has been the Beige Planet Podcast. I'm Paul Pate.
I'm Al Lawrence.
And thanks a ton, Tom Vosicky.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been an honor having you on.
It's been an honor being on there.